Good evening, Simon Jacobson here for another webcast. It's always an honor to speak to all of you, and in the spirit of this ongoing weekly exercise, dialogue, discussion, however one wants to call it, I will say that the interaction and synergy that is created through kindred spirits, through souls, through people who communicate with each other, who want to find ways to feed and nourish and nurture each other, is just simply amazing. I've been a witness to it personally, and I've been transformed in the process through the years of my teaching this class. So I want to thank everyone for that experience and opportunity. And I hope you learn as much from me as I've learned from you. Tonight's class, which is connected to this weekly Torah portion, I usually focus on one of the 52 chapters of the year, 52 chapters in the Torah which correspond to the 52 weeks of the year, meaning that each week has its corresponding chapter. Every chapter has 7 sections. In effect, every day of the year has its particular Torah story, and with the focus of making it personally relevant to our lives. So this week's chapter is in the book of Numbers, is one of the legendary chapters, the chapter of Balak. Balak referring to the king of Moab, who feels threatened by the Jewish people as they come marching through their 40-year trek through the wilderness, and they are their way to the promised land. And Balak, being threatened, calls upon the prophet Balaam, a Gentile prophet, a non-Jewish prophet, but he was nevertheless a prophet who had power, to come curse the Jews. And the story elaborates how Balaam prepares to go, but obviously, being a prophet, a true prophet, as a matter of fact, the Medrash says that Balaam, when it says that no prophet ever rose among Israel like Moses, the Medrash says, like in Israel, but not among the nations. In Israel, no one was ever as great as Moses, but among the nations there was someone, and his name was Balaam. So a true prophet needs, of course, God's permission and God's blessing and God speaking through him. So he makes his way with all the difficulties, the famous story of Balaam's jackass who refuses to cooperate. And finally Balaam tells Balak, listen, I can only say that which God wants me to say. So Balaam tells Balak how to prepare. They prepare offerings, prepare different type of rituals, and then when Balaam opens his mouth, to the dismay of Balak and his cohorts, instead of curses come out blessings. Some of the greatest blessings are said by Balaam to the Jewish people and about the Jewish people. Ma tovu ahalecha Yaakov, which we say every morning in the prayers. How beautiful, how good are the tents and camps of Israel, Yaakov and Israel, and so on and so forth. So the blessing, the curses turn into blessings. Now I've discussed this theme many different directions and their personal relevance, but tonight's topic, which I know will intrigue many of us, is titled The Black Magic, the Dark Side of Kabbalah. Of course, referring to the magical powers or the prophetic powers of a Balaam, who is definitely from the dark side. And what exactly is this? Is there true power to the so-called occult, to the negative? Is there a thing called witchcraft? Is there sorcery, voodooism, and black magic? And what is the meaning of it? Is there significance to it? Or is it just plain mumbo-jumbo, meaningless, and so on? Now, why is this a relevant topic? Because in the broad sense of the word, like someone once came to me a few months ago to speak, they told me they feel that there's someone who has a satanic hold on them. They feel hypnotized, they feel seduced by someone who has this type of power over them. Now, of course, I dismissed it, because I said no one can have power over you if you don't allow them to have power over you. Nevertheless, we do find in the Torah the concept of someone having some type of super spiritual powers. Spiritual powers, like in any given situation, we have free will, can be used for good, can be used for negative. So there is the concept of spiritual power. Yet at the same time, we have the ability to immunize ourselves and to protect ourselves from these negative things. So I want to discuss this whole thing of positive energy, negative energy, people giving off good vibes, bad vibes. We talk about Ayin Horus, the evil eye, their good eyes, In other words, this whole concept of spirituality in the context, is spirituality always pure? Can it be abused? Do people who have that type of inner sensitivity, can they be abusive and hurt us with their insight? And all of that. And clearly this is the chapter to discuss it around, because this is the theme where a Balak wanted to employ a Bilam, a man of prophet, a man of God, a prophet of God, for negative reasons, to curse and to hurt the Jewish people. The story ends up that he actually blesses them. But as we'll see, the end of the story is not exactly a happy one. He ends up hurting them as well. And that's all part of this discussion. So what we're really discussing here is the power of spirituality. What does it mean in our lives? And what is the soul? So the mystics teach, and this should be common knowledge today to everyone, that we live in a physical universe which is driven by inner energy. In other words, the material universe as we see it and as we know it is not a self-contained universe. It's just a surface level that conceals that which is inside of it. What's inside of it? Brimming with layers and layers of energy. So today in modern physics, even if you're not familiar with physics per se, the fact is whether you have a cell phone or a fax machine or a television or internet, we know that they're invisible energies. There are waves of all types of lengths and sizes that are in essence, part of the whole structure of this existence. And when you know how to manipulate those energies, we have radio, excuse me, we have radio, we have television, we have microwave, we have infrared, we have ultraviolet rays, sound waves, light waves, a whole series of forces that come down to the inner molecules, and within them the atomic structure and subatomic particles that really define existence. And the same is true in the human body. The body functions on a biological level. We have organs, things that are visible to the eye. But we know these organs are made up of nerves. And the nerves are further made up of cells. And the entire body has actually 75 trillion cells. Trillion cells. One, God forbid, mutation can wreak havoc. So the chemicals, the DNA, the cellular structure of a human being is really what shapes us. What we see and what we experience on the outer level is just surface. You can say it's the consequences, the results. No different than if some little earthquake takes place beneath the water, you may just see a small little ripple effect on top of the water, on the surface. Beneath it may be a volcanic eruption, but above it may just be a small little ripple, small little wave. So the forces that shape existence are invisible to the naked eye, but their results are not. So in looking at the universe, when we say, what is reality? Looking at each other as human beings, who am I? Who are you? So on a surface level, I'm a body. I have particular features. Color eyes, color hair, well, if you call that hair. Other personality features, physiology. But is that a full definition of who I am or who you are? So it's the outer level. Then there's within, you can say there's the internal organs, a heart, a mind, a liver, a spleen, and all the hundreds and hundreds of different organs that each of us contains. But is that who you are? Also not. Because within that lies a personality. The way you think, the way you feel. Is that whole you are? Clearly not. There's an unconscious dimension. So how far do you go, and how do you fully define a human being? Who am I? The answer is it's all the above and more. We may never even be able to identify who you completely are. You can say a human being is made up of many layers, many levels, many dimensions. And the same thing is with the larger universe. We say a human being is a microcosm of the universe. And that's why it's so vital to understand these ideas, because we're not talking about some abstract mystical concept in the cosmos. We're talking about you and I. We're talking about people like us. For us to understand ourselves, for us to deal with pain, to deal with joy, to deal with the people we love, to face confrontations. It's required to understand who you are, what makes you tick, what makes me tick, what makes us all tick. So that is why understanding the so-called spiritual dynamic, the dynamic energies that flow within, that shape reality around us and us, is so important to know, and that is why we study the teachings of the Kabbalah, the teachings of Hasidus. We're taught the inner workings of existence, the inner forces that shape each of us. So there's an inner spiritual energy behind it all. If you're to say molecules have within them atoms, have within them subatomic particles, if you say within the organs of the body there are layers and layers, and there's cells and DNA and so on, beneath it all there's spiritual energy, soul energy, spiritual energy. Someone once asked the Rebbe the question, last week we honored 14 years since the Rebbe's soul went to another dimension on the 3rd of Tammuz, something I actually should have addressed last week, and I'd like to just say a few words because he was my master, my teacher. Much of what I've learned, if not all, comes from this spiritual mentor, a true man of God. So someone once asked him, it was actually a group of students who came to see him in 1960, and they came and asked him the question, can you perform a miracle? They say, you're a tzaddik, a rebbe, can you perform a miracle? And he smiled and said to them, I'm not responsible for what others say about me, but I will tell you this, that the concept of a miracle is simply based on the principle that material energy, that the physical universe is driven by spiritual energy. So if someone can manipulate those energies, in effect, they will have changed the physical universe. They can suspend in some way change the physical universe. I'm adding this is not what he said. But think of when you plant seeds into the ground. Tomato seeds, potato seeds, or some other fruit, or food. And if you look at it that way, what was really happening? There was someone who was ignorant to the process. They say, how could you expect planting a few little kernels, seeds into the ground is going to yield anything? But we know there's some power in the ground, some mysterious power in existence and creation, that when you plant a seed and you take it from there, you water it, and you thresh and cultivate the land, what ultimately happens is that, yes, a plant can grow. And a plant that will yield fruit, that we can nourish us, feed us, and grow more plants, the seeds will continue to perpetuate. What is the mysterious dynamic that's taking place? The mysterious dynamic is there's more than meets the eye. If you just look at the ground, or if you planted the seed in a dish on your table, it wouldn't make a difference. Something in the ground that has some certain power that we cannot see, that the seed is a catalyst of. It sparks and ignites something that creates what we call the vegetation process that will yield this particular fruit or food. Why are you stopping me?